Hey, let me tell you about The Secrets of the Flesh, a 1999 biography of Colette, A Life of Colette by Judith Thurman, which all came about for me picking it up because I decided to do a deep dive into The Tender Shoot, a little novella written very late in her life by Colette. And I wanted information on her, and it was very hard to get as English speaking only. And so, after a couple of false starts, I found this biography by Judith Thurman. And I got really lucky here because this is a super rich portrait of someone who was sort of a wild child in her youth, with her much older husband. Wrote the Claudine books, these kind of very racy, kind of almost kind of Lolita, sexy schoolgirl books as a kid, kind of coming of age, the kind of the idea of a teenager being created by Colette in the early 1900s. She was born in like 18 in the 1870s and died in 1950. Colette. And um, going from that through kind of a memoirist. She was a journalist. She was a actress. Very, kind of at a time when she's bearing her breast on stage and stuff like that. Very kind of scandalous. But this book, Thurman gives you an idea of the kind of the setting of France of the time. Going through Belle Epoque, kind of the wild kind of can girls, that kind of thing of France through World War I, World War II, kind of this period, and how France actually, for all its misogyny, didn't penalize its intellectuals for having kind of a sexual life. And indeed, Colette, who some way I think is kind of dismissed in the West, it seems, as sort of just like, oh, someone who writes about love, writes about, one of her probably most famous works in English because of the movie is Gigi, which is another kind of one of this, oh, thank goodness for little girls, kind of creepy old Frenchman creeping on a young girl, that sort of stuff. Colette, I mean, was interested in this stuff of sort of domination and submission, being very much dominated in her youth, and then becoming the dominator, becoming the older woman with younger men. Later in her life, she went from being the waif to being this very kind of overweight, hungry for food, hungry for life, older woman in a kind of a very kind of defiant way against the whole kind of cult of thinness. She was someone who was very proud of being fat. She did not see this as a negative thing. Um, you know, Thurman really captures all this and also does a really good job of, because Colette was a memoirist herself and wasn't above mythologizing or telling lies to get to portray her truth. Thurman is really good at searching out the sources and not trusting Colette. It's not like it's an adversarial thing, but it's just like, yeah, you need to kind of focus in there and sort of see. And there's some ways that Colette is very, stirringly able to see kind of relationships and things like that. But there's in other ways where her own kind of selfishness that she has to have as an artist makes her quite blind to stuff. And Thurman is really good at illuminating all of this stuff and illuminating. She's a great writer. She's great kind of vitality, but she's also someone who she had an affair with her started an affair with her 16-year-old stepson, which is something that would be things that would completely outrage anyone today looking back at this person. But doing it in such a way that you're going like, look, you need to kind of take in this whole person, the whole messiness of the person, and deal with it. And not everything in somebody's life is going to make you comfortable. And Thurman is very much like, yeah, let's be grown-ups about this. Colette herself is a very adult figure, someone who is not she is not romantic. She is almost, there's some ways that she is gothic, or Sadian in her viewpoint of the world, Desaad, kind of that kind of hardness to her and her cold view of human nature. What is the possibilities of actually having some kind of an equal relationship between a man and a woman? That's why she seemed to fall into this submission and domination kind of idea. Thurman also does a really good job of just kind of trying to give you an idea of exactly how great of a writer this is. This is a writer who was considered the equal of someone like Proust at the time. It's like French were not, they're not going to have kid gloves with something. If they think something shit, they let you know. You get that idea of exactly how well respected, how revered someone like Colette was. And at the same time, Thurman does a really good job of highlighting, pointing out, this is someone who had a younger Jewish husband at the end of her life, but published her work in pro-Nazi, fascist publications in occupied France. Indeed, The Tender Shoot itself was something that was written and published in a collaborationist publication. So, she does a really great job of bringing this kind of, it's a crazy aunt, a wise aunt, very sexual aunt. She's gonna she's quite happy to have this someone describing her as well, she was bedridden at the end of her life. She couldn't get out of bed. She was really overweight, but she had those powerful, piercing eyes, that vitality that drew both men and women to her, and was probably a terrible mother on top of all this. So it's a great portrait. So if you are looking for a really interesting read, something that's going to really draw you in to both a person and to a world, I would highly recommend The Secrets of the Flesh, A Life of Colette by Judith Thurman. All right, I've been Jay. More videos later.